now begin a series of special sessions. Today, of course, we focus on women. We'll have focus on mobile health. We'll focus on clean technology. We will have the venture capitalists come in, the accelerators come in, and besides, we'll have a lot of sessions where you can get a lot of podium time to make presentations. Today is our first session. The attendance is 10, but we do have an extraordinary panel out here, and I'm very glad and thankful that Katherine has agreed to moderate this session. Katherine, as you know, has the small business section of City of Toronto. She interacts with 35,000 small businesses. She's a graduate of University of Toronto and regularly shops at small businesses, educates, consults, and coaches them. I will now request Katherine to take over the show. It's an all-ladies show, so I'm going to listen to first. Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you very much. Let's start by introducing the panel, because I'm not the show here. We've got some fantastic entrepreneurs that are going to share their stories, and I think that's what's most important here.
All right, let's just make sure I don't trip. Okay. All right, I'm just going to go through the panel first, and then I'm just going to set some context slides about women and entrepreneurship. First of all, and each of these entrepreneurs is going to do a little bit more of a fulsome introduction of themselves when we begin the formal panel discussion, because I'm not going to do it justice. But we have Zaire Varani of mybindi.com. We have Shelley Meyer of Ramp Communications. We have Selena Chavanis, and I'm going to get the...
Resolve Research Solutions.
Okay, thank you. No, it was your hyphenated name. I was getting... I was trying to memorize everything and be smart here. Anyway, Rebecca Short of Mocktailed Fasander, and we have... sorry. Ahalia, sorry. You're catching me off guard. Ahalia Kumaran, who's the founder of Inner Oli. Anyway, we've got 5 completely different business owners with very different backgrounds that are going to share their experiences. And we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible so that the conversation is about you and what you want to learn from their experiences. So just to set a bit of context here, I developed this presentation last year, so I apologize for some of you who were here last year perhaps. But Lalit asked me to talk about the differences between men and women entrepreneurs, and were there any differences at all? And if you could hit the slide. And I started off my presentation saying that my intention, here, let's see if we can get it on slideshow.
Actually on the show, okay.
Yeah, there, perfect. I started out by saying that I'm not a rabid feminist, and my intention is not to have a battle of the sexes or gender war or any sort of thing in that vein. But as an economic developer, I've seen the stats, and there are some differences. So I just wanted to share that with you today as a bit of an introduction, and then I think we're going to spend the rest of the evening talking about what's exactly the same between women and men entrepreneurs. So the next slide, please. Thanks. So it's a fact that women are actually starting businesses at a higher rate than men. Okay, so in sheer numbers, men are still starting more businesses than men, but women are starting businesses at, say, twice the rate. We're catching up. We're deciding that working independently is better. We're being told that it's a career option, and it's happening more frequently. But it's actually a significantly smaller group of businesses that are owned by women. I've been paying attention to this a long time. It was back in the 1990s when the Bank of Montreal actually did the first study of women entrepreneurs in Canada, and it had never been done before, and they were the first ones to identify the fact that women were starting businesses at a much higher rate than men. In 2003, then Prime Minister Jean Chrétien created a task force on women entrepreneurs that was led by a Toronto lawyer/entrepreneur, Sam Bolte, and I had the privilege of sitting in on a presentation of the findings, and it was a women's association, so it wasn't a political event or anything like that, and she shared some of the war stories from behind the scenes, and boy was it sort of interesting talking to government and communities about women entrepreneurs. And in fact, Stats Canada had never, and this is in 2003, had never differentiated between women and entrepreneurs. And in fact, any woman who was self-employed usually would fit into a non-standard work category. They're a national statistics organization. Anyway, so that has changed. And they made a number of key recommendations. And in fact, one of the recommendations that is now a benefit to all entrepreneurs is the fact that in, I believe it was in 2011, all entrepreneurs can choose to contribute to employment insurance if they so wish. So that should something happen to their business that is beyond their control, they actually have that as a backup. Okay, so that task force actually had some significant impacts. Anyway, women continue today to start businesses at a higher rate of growth than men, though men still start businesses, more business in Canada. So why is that? Next slide. Just kinks that. Oh, you did, okay, sorry. You're fast. You're fast. Okay.
I'm an entrepreneur, I have to think one step.
Yeah, you're a step ahead of me. Okay, so about 47% of Canadian businesses have some degree of female ownership. Only 16% are majority owned by women. Now this is where I usually make a joke about divorce law and how we own 50% of businesses anyway, but not very many people usually laugh at that. Anyway, my husband owns a business. He doesn't like it that I might own part of it. Anyway, so 16% are majority owned, 19% are jointly owned, okay? But there are another 900,000 women in Canada that are self-employed. So that's a huge pool of people who are sticking their hand up and saying, hey, I like this working independently thing, and is one of the reasons why we're starting to catch up. Women are still balancing more household responsibilities and choosing jobs that provide maternity leave benefits and things like that. That is one of the barriers, whether we like it or not, that still is in that's a structural barrier in the economy. Next slide, thank you. So another reason why women aren't necessarily owning the big businesses, women are actually generating revenues that are about half of what male-owned businesses are. So the average revenue for women-owned business is $563,000 versus $1.1 million for men. Okay, and it's not because women are not tackling when women and men are tackling the same business problems, their businesses usually grow to the same size. But women are more likely to start service sector businesses. They're more likely to create lifestyle businesses because they want to balance work and family. They're less likely to export, probably because of those other two reasons. And they often have less management experience, unfortunately, okay, because of barriers in the traditional workforce as well. They're all therefore less likely to delegate, hire talent needed to grow, that sort of thing. Okay. Next slide, please. Thanks. This one I think is a little bit, so women entrepreneurs have more difficulty obtaining financing than their male counterparts. But let me tell you, the banks have been all over this because they don't want to be accused of discriminating, and they've been working on this for 10 or 15 years, okay? So all the studies that have been done, that when a man and a woman get credit, they are offered exactly the same interest rates and credit terms. But small service lifestyle businesses are never offered credit. And because women are operating a large number of those, they're not getting credit, okay? The other thing is that women aren't necessarily tapping into venture financing networks. So ladies, all of you who are here at Thai Institute, congratulations, because you are tapping into venture financing networks that some of your counterparts are not tapping into. And so I really applaud you for being here. And it's an important thing that Thai is doing to make sure that there's a good representation of women here. The other thing is that women often express their goals a little bit differently. So lots of guys, lots of bravado when we talk about making $1 billion, and women tend to express their goals a little bit differently. Next slide, please. So it has been proven, there's a woman at the University of Ottawa that's been doing research on women entrepreneurs for some time, and women do bring a different management style and set of values to their businesses. Some of the street level verbs that are often used to describe entrepreneurs are, they use masculine language, you know, self-reliant, logical, risk-taking. Whereas women tend to use more values-driven language when they talk about their businesses, and you can test that out on the ladies tonight, okay? They want to empower people, they're nurturing clients, they're creating teams, they're giving back to their communities, okay? So it's sort of a gender difference in our society is producing different kinds of businesses. Next slide, please. So, it's also a fact, despite all those differences that I've just shared, it's also a fact that women entrepreneurs seek business growth and have the same aspirations as their male counterparts when they're starting the same kinds of businesses, okay? Women are still catching up. Women haven't been running businesses as long as men. And if you think of the number 900,000 self-employed, and if you think of the increased rate of business starts, we are catching up quick. Next slide, please. So, in my personal opinion, and I think you're going to hear that in the panel, there are far more similarities than differences. Next slide. I do speak to women's audiences every once in a while, and I heard a fantastic presentation at an International Women's Day event actually last year, where Jacqueline Lowen, who's a very well-respected private equity investor here in the city of Toronto, she's a director on the Exempt Market Dealers Association of Ontario, etc. And she gave some advice to women who wanted to grow and who were seeking financing to grow, etc. And so these considerations are really were influenced by that talk last year. Anyway, she says, if you want to grow, you better say it out loud. Okay, start telling people that you also want to run $1 billion company. Okay, don't just leave that to the guys. You need a viable growth plan. So, despite all the language around wanting to make a social impact and doing good and building a nice team, write it down and make sure it's a good plan and it's a viable plan. Use the lean startup methodology and the business model canvas. Use all of those fantastic tools you're learning as part of the Thai Institute to develop a really solid business plan. Make sure you have the right mentors and advisors. They don't have to be women. Okay? I've seen a lot of women who, it's easy to network with other women. Okay, so this is probably a bit unusual that all of us are in a room together, because probably most of the folks on this panel are used to being networking in rooms of men. Okay? And that's okay. We can learn from the guys. And we can choose the best guys as our mentors. Okay? And this was a funny thing that I read, but my own personal experience probably, I would have to say it's true. But I read something once that men, when they think of being in control, like bossing people around and having lots of money to usher around. And women, when they're in control, it means they do everything themselves. Okay, so that's what this last point is about. Think objectively about the resources you need, and the resources you need aren't 36 hours in a day. It's talent, it's financing, it's all of those other things to help you get where you want to go. So, ladies, say it out loud. Okay. Anyway, the last slide, and this is my inspiration working at the City of Toronto. This is a very tiny list of some of the really smart, successful women entrepreneurs that are here in Toronto, in addition to the folks that are sitting on this panel, okay? And this is truly just the tip of the iceberg, but I'm sure many of you have eaten Renee's gourmet salad dressings. She's from Toronto. Rita Tsang, very interesting woman. Tourist Holidays, she broke open the travel market to Asia. Joanne Papari, very quiet woman, engineer, runs a very successful cleaning supplies, environmentally friendly cleaning supplies. She sells to the federal government, she exports around the world, etc. Marnie Walker, I believe she is the only woman who has appeared on the W100 twice for 2 different businesses. Okay, she's also an angel investor. She teaches at the Robin School of Business, etc. Sandra Wilson, Arobi's Footwear. I have 19 nieces and nephews. I've bought a lot of her little shoes. Edie Weiss from Radke Film Group. Toronto has a fantastic film sector. Okay? and she's one of the players. Sarah Prevett of Sprouter. She's in fact just, I believe she just ended the employment contract that was part of her buyout deal by Postmedia as of today. Tomorrow she's a free woman working on another venture. Leila Boujnani, eDay Inc. It's an international startup ecosystem survey done, and she was one of the business owners that was listed as indicative of the talent in Toronto's tech entrepreneur community. Lauren Fries, young woman, runs Talent Egg. She teaches big companies and baby boomers and old people how to recruit young talent. She's got very strong feelings about our education system and how we prepare youth for the workforce, etc. Very bright woman. Tanya Sermon, Center for Social Innovation. She's just opened a New York facility. She is a force to be reckoned with in the social innovation space. Denise Meehan, Licks Homeburgers. The original Licks restaurant down in the beaches has just closed. It's turning into condos, I believe. But I see them in the freezer case in my grocery store every weekend when I'm doing my shopping. So, in fact, probably in that category, I should also have Dufflet Rosenberg. There's another food manufacturer from Toronto that's a real icon. Cherry Tab, she's the business brains behind the Herzog Eye Institute. She's not the scientist, but she's the business development brains. Julie Cole, Mabel's Labels. I watched her at a business event. She just had her 6th child. She's a lawyer, and she breastfed in between elements of the event. And she thought that was perfectly normal because that's the way she balanced work and life. Anyway, so there's a lot of fantastic women entrepreneurs out there that we can look to for inspiration, but there's also lots of fantastic male entrepreneurs that we can look to for inspiration. Tonight we're going to hear from these incredible 5 women about their experiences. And with that, I'm going to break. And I think that Lalit, you've... Okay, quick, sorry. Lalit wants to do the introduction so we can get straight to the panel afterwards. So you're grinning at me. Do you want to start?
Okay, so no pressure that I go first because I know that then everyone else follows my structure. So, well, my name's Ahalia Kumar, and I had to put my name tag down here because I'm wearing a lace top today, so I didn't want to ruin that. Can everyone hear me? I have a pretty loud voice, so I will project. Perfect. Okay, back there, I got the thumbs up. And I'm the founder of Inner Oli. Now, Oli actually means light in my mother tongue. And what we do is really work with ambitious professionals and entrepreneurs and help them achieve clarity and confidence so that they can do 3 things all at the same time. Make a meaningful difference, make money, and do what they love. I mean, I absolutely believe that it's possible to do all 3 of those things at the same time, and that's what I help my clients achieve. Now, you know, how I got into this is because my career started off in consulting and leadership consulting and human capital consulting. So I was always sort of in this space, never quite doing exactly this. Most of my work was working with executives and senior leaders, helping them be better leaders. And being quite young myself, as I'm sure you can see, I felt like there was a huge opportunity to help people who were making more defining life choices. People who weren't already at the peak of their careers, who hadn't already sort of, achieved what they needed to achieve, and anything I did would just help them get a little bit, higher. I really wanted to help people who were maybe choosing between, when they were at a fork in the road, or they're really ready for the next level, and, they needed somebody to help them push further. So that's really when I decided, and of course I went through a quarter-life crisis where I thought, what am I doing with my life? And, do I want to, die having done this work? And all of those important questions. And ended up really deciding that, coaching is what I really want to do. Really helping people in that way. And that was the birth of Inner Oli. And the first couple years, I did it on the side. I had a full-time consulting gig, which is more than a full-time job. And I started this on the side because I wanted to make sure, being such a risk-averse person, that it's something that I really wanted to do. And then 2 years later, I finally took the leap and went full-time, and that was 2 years ago. So now I've been the founder of Inner Oli and been leading it, for 2 years now. And we do coaching and speaking and training primarily. And right now I'm actually seeing a shift in my business, which is something that I've wanted, which is going from the professional services model of making money for my time to making money while I sleep. And I love to sleep, so it's a great concept. Now, I'll leave it at that for now, and of course, I think throughout the rest of the evening I'm happy to share more. Over to you.
I'm Rebecca Short, and I'm actually not Canadian. I'm from Texas, so you have a foreigner in your midst. But I've been in Canada for the last 28, 29 years. It's a little bit more difficult for me to tell you exactly what I've been doing because there have been a number of different entrepreneurial efforts that I've gone through. I started in a business career. I had 15 years of middle management, upper management jobs within sort of oil and gas, chemicals, tires, large Fortune 500 companies. I think that that's basically given me a huge grounding in terms of marketing, planning, strategy. Market research is another thing I've done, one-on-one research, industrial market research. So traveling around the US and also Canada in some of the jobs, and to Europe, doing original research. So I'll tell you the thing I was really famous for in the 80s. I did the first market research study on vinyl windows in North America. And it was picked up by 35 plastics magazines all around the world. So what was interesting too is that I did a forecast for 1995 that actually turned out to be true. And since however, about 1995, I've been involved with a startup business that almost started up, got way up high. We got to the Olympics in Atlanta, and then it didn't start up. We've run 3 startup businesses out of Kitchener-Waterloo in the last while, one of which is a software startup. And that startup has gone on to be financed through a CEO that I recruited in order to take that business forward, because we were not software, we're not software engineers, we're not developers. But it's always been around understanding, from a marketing point of view, understanding your customers. Our company, Motel Fossander, is a design firm. It started out as an advertising agency and typical marketing communications design for business-to-business companies. What we added to it as we saw the market changing, and as we also added people with capabilities to our own, we went into branding, we went into strategy, we've gone into design thinking, we've worked with large clients, and we work with multinational and international companies and national companies within Canada, within business to business. So I've got a lot of different experience, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of it with you.
My name is Selena Chavan, and I'm the owner of Resolve Research Solutions Incorporated, which is a research management and site management organization. And I think I'm going to start a little bit before I started my business, because I see there's a lot of young people in the room, and then I'll leave it to when we're actually doing the panel to speak a little bit more about my business. But I actually went to the University of Toronto, and I did my undergraduate degree in human biology, and didn't do so well as an undergrad. I went back after having my daughter and been getting married and having my daughter, and I did an undergraduate research course, and I loved research. I fell in love with research at that point, did really well in it, and started to excel further and further throughout the University of Toronto in various capacities as a research coordinator, and thought, man, I could be a research manager. This would be fantastic. I could do a 9-to-5 for the rest of my life. So I did my MBA in healthcare management and thought, man, now I'm the most marketable person on the planet. I have my MBA, I've, redefined myself, and here I am. And so I tried to look for a job. And everywhere I went, they said I was either overqualified or I didn't have enough managerial experience. I sent out over 700 resumes, and every time I pressed send, this little bug inside my heart or in my head would say, you should be looking for customers, you should start your own business, you should look for customers, and you shouldn't be sending out resumes. But I'd say, oh my God, I have a mouth to feed. I have now 2 mouths to feed because I had my two daughters. And I thought, you know what, let me just click send one more time, and the little voice would say, don't click send, look for a customer. And so eventually I decided to start Resolve Research Solutions as being an independent research consultant, because I thought I could be a research manager. my first client came along, and I'll speak more to this a little bit later, but my first client came along and helped me really define what my company was. And while I was at University of Toronto, one of my mentors told me when I was asking him to write me a reference letter that, you know, you're really good at research, but you're also really good at business. And it allowed me to then go and do my MBA, but in retrospect, it allowed me to be able to marry the two things that I'm most passionate about. I love research, but I hate sitting behind a bench, and I love business. So now I manage, I do project management for pharmaceutical companies, for government, for private and public organizations all the time. So I really enjoy it. The support for my business in the early years came from my family, various mentors that I met. Katherine talked about the importance of mentorship, and I could speak a little bit about that later. But now Resolve Research Solutions is a double award-winning company. We've won the Harry Jerome Award from the Black Business and Professional Association for Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and then recently won the Toronto Board of Trade Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2012. So I'm quite excited about the business that I've started, and I'm hoping to be able to share with you some of my lessons learned. And I would invite you to ask questions, but I do have cards with me, so if you have any questions that you don't feel like asking it in a public format, just feel free to contact me later.
Hi, my name is Shelley Mayer, and I'm the owner of Ramp Communications, which is a full-service marketing and advertising agency here in Toronto. I started Ramp in mid-2011, so it's a relatively new venture for me. 2012 was a big year for our company because we secured our first national retail client, which was fantastic, and has enabled me to grow my business. So I've gone from starting out just myself to I have 4 full-time employees plus me, and between 10 and 12 freelance resources that we use on a regular basis. So it's been a great first year and almost 2 years now. How I got into my business, I guess I started out my career, I always knew I had to be in business. It wasn't even, I had no other programs on my consideration set when I was going to university. It was just business, business, business. And I always thought I wanted to move to Toronto. I grew up in a smaller town, and so I did that, went to business school, and then moved to Toronto. My first position was at a software entrepreneurial company, a software company that was growing. And so I had a taste of what small business and a high growth entrepreneurial situation would be like, and I did really enjoy that environment. But I also found that as somebody who'd gone through a 4-year business program, I just felt like I wanted to see what the whole corporate thing was about as well. And so I went and worked corporate side for a large automotive company, and had a number of experiences there. But the whole time, well, especially the latter part of my time there, even though I loved the job and it was really fantastic, I felt this draw to do my own thing and have my own business. I think it was something that I always felt really strongly about. And so after my 3rd child, I used that as an opportunity to get out of the corporate situation, and started out freelancing for a couple years. About 18 months to just figure out what kind of company I wanted to start and how I wanted to shape it, and I started it, and it worked. So here I am. So I'll share a little more about the rest of my story later.
I have to time myself, right? I'm Saira. So I actually have 2 names. My first name is Salima, and my middle name is Saira. So you'll probably hear both names interchangeably sometimes. And I have several businesses as well. So I'm trained as a lawyer. I actually worked not too far from here at First Canadian Place, and I worked in business. So I'm a transactions lawyer, and what that means is that I worked on mergers and acquisitions and divestitures and VC financing for my clients. And as most Bay Street corporate lawyers are, I was a bit of a deal junkie, which means I went through my highs and lows. I loved closing deals for my clients. I think I did well for them. I had a corner office south side on the 72nd floor of First Canadian Place. So I was going places. I was actually, in a pretty good office in the tallest building in Canada. And like everybody else on this panel, there was this little voice that said, you're closing deals for everybody else. You can do this for yourself too. And for me, that drive came more out of a hobby project than something that I left to start a business. And because I'm born and raised in India, I had moved to Canada, and I was very homesick. I was going through a divorce at the time, and I was very homesick. I missed not having friends, and I worked 18-hour days, as lawyers do, and it was tough. It was tough because I wanted to go out and network and meet people from my culture, do things, and I looked online to find groups and organizations, and this is 10, 12 years ago. So there was no Facebook, there was no Meetup, there wasn't the kind of social platform that you can plug yourself into right now. But I did find a chat room run by an obscure, group of kids, and it was called mybindi.com. And I'm like, this is great, because I actually went to the chat room, and I was probably the only person that's ever gone into a chat room and said, let's start a book club. It doesn't happen in a chat room. But that's what I wanted to do. I really wanted to find people with common interests and create a platform. And I found that I was spending so much time, and I kept bugging the owners of the portal, you should do this, you should do that. And they were just annoyed at some point, and then I said, would you like to sell this to me? And I've seen ads on subway stops here that said, I like this business so much I bought it. That is me, I did that. I actually acquired mybindi.com, and I've owned it for the last 8 years now, and I have been able to convert and transform it into what I thought was my vision, and I continue to evolve it as my vision evolves and as the market tells me. While I was doing mybindi.com, my time's up, so you know what? I'm just going to tell you what my other 2 businesses are, and then we'll leave it for the panel. So in addition to being a lawyer and running MyBindi, I also run a coaching practice, which is entrepreneur.ca. I only work with business entrepreneurs. And next month, I'm launching my first brick and mortar business, which is Zen Campus. It's a co-working facility and a collaborative workspace and hub for entrepreneurs. So thank you.
Okay.
30 seconds over.
This is an awesome panel.
Awesome.